Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to episode 7 of the Straight Outta Prison podcast. I'm James K. Jones, and this is my story.
And I'm Haley Jones, and this is his story that has now become a part of my story.
So in the last episode, we talked about going to prison to the North Florida Reception Center, Lake Butler, navigating through that very challenging time. That ended up being about 2 weeks for me, which is about normal. If you don't get in trouble, you keep your head down, you do what they say, you can make it through. I was very relieved that I would be leaving there. The only, I guess, downer I had, prison's a downer, but I was sentenced as a youthful offender, so I had one of 3 camps that I would go to, ACI, Brevard Correctional Institution, or Lancaster Correctional Institution. ACI was for behavior problems, so I knew I wouldn't go there, so it was between Brevard and Lancaster, and I was desperately hoping to go to Lancaster because it was closer to home. I ended up getting classified to go to BCI, Brevard Correctional Institution, they called it BCI, which put me about 11 hours from home, which was a little devastating for me because I knew, I'm not going to be getting many visits. So that was closing out that time at Lake Butler. I was just ready to go.
So something that stuck out to me is I feel like with every step there's this very involved, time-consuming process. And last time you talked about going from the jail to Lake Butler and the process of actually just entering in and what they put you through. And you've been there, and now you're transferring again to
my permanent camp.
To your permanent camp. So how long were you in Lake Butler again? Was it a week and a day?
No, it was like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Maybe 3. It was not long.
Okay.
I made it through. I did extraordinarily well because you can get hung up there and stay there for a long time if you give them any kind of issues, or they even have a slight suspicion that you're going to be a problem at your permanent camp. They will jam you up there. So I made it through pretty fast.
Okay, so let's talk about the transfer from Lake Butler to your first permanent camp.
Well, that was interesting because this time, I'd been, one of the hardest things for me was transfers because they would, the way they change you up and did all that stuff. They actually pulled a bus into the compound there, this big, it was like a prison bus. If you ever saw it on the street, you probably wouldn't know what it was, but it's a bus that's basically has the windows barred up over it, and you have 2 armed guards with rifles and then somebody driving it, and they just let us get on the bus. They didn't handcuff us, shackle us. I was like, wow, this is nice. We knew it was going to be a 2 or 3 hour trip. They actually had a urinal in the back of the bus. You could get up and go take a leak when you needed to, and I thought that was so nice. I'm not shackled.
Your standards have now
gone
very low, so this is a luxury transfer experience.
It was. To be able to use the bathroom and not be shackled to the seat was good. The one thing I think, the emotions of that, it's different in the state when they transfer you because they have backup and cover. They're not as worried about escapes and stuff like that as cities and counties are. So they did it in broad daylight. It was, one morning, pack it up, you're going to BCI. I had I think I had 10 or 12 guys with me. None of them from my county where I came from, but some I'd gotten to know in those couple weeks I was at Butler. But just the sun was out, shining, and BCI is right below Orlando, and we actually rode where you could see Disney World and the Epcot Center from the highway. And I just remember, gosh, that was so depressing. I'm going to prison, and there's Disney World.
So how long was the ride? How many hours?
I think it was 2 or 3 hours. It wasn't a bad.
Oh, okay.
It was from somewhere in North Florida to Central Florida.
And you saw Disney World, isn't it? I'm trying to remember when you were on your final binge of stealing and all the stuff that you'd said you were going to go to Disney, right?
No, at the cop, when I got pulled over, the deputy asked me where I was going, and I didn't know what to tell him, and I said, we're going to Disney World.
Oh.
So we finally made it.
Little did you know you were
I finally made it.
Going to pass by it.
It was...
Maybe not go in.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So you got there, and to your first camp. And you just walked in and found your room?
No, there was none of that. It was very similar to the process that you did at Lake Butler. I remember when we pulled up, they have these like, I forget what they even call them, but it's like a gate with two sides. So they would pull the bus in the gate and close the back, open the front, let you out. And I remember as we pulled in, just looking at this town, it looked like a little town in Florida, like a vacation town.
Inside the compound?
No, just the city where we pulled in. And then, but yes, the compound did too. It was, if it weren't for the razor wire around it, there were no guard towers. This was a youthful offender camp. There were not like the big towers like I would see later on in my experience, but there was like two fences with the razor wire. But if you took that out of your mind, it looked like a college campus. It was made of red bricks. It was probably 20 acres, and it was a city inside those fences. It was, a
city within a city, basically.
Well, it's a camp. You got 1,000+ men living there. You've got 300 or 400 people that work there. You have there were 10 dorms with they didn't have cells there. They were like rooms.
Okay.
But you locked your own. You got a key to your own room. You locked your own room, and there were 2 men in every cell. I feel like I may be getting a bit ahead of myself, but there was 10 of those, and there were 2 open bay dorms. That's just where everybody's sleeping on a bunk out in the middle of everything, and you have to start off in one of those dorms before you get your like permanent housing assignment. There was a school there. There's a trade school and a GED school.
Oh wow!
Well, I actually got my GED there, but I guess that's another story. There's a library. There's a chow hall. There's a big kitchen, a laundry. There's a little medical center, little dental center. There's a gym, a yard, like a big yard.
And you had access, like you could just walk around and see all these things that you're naming off?
Not immediately. When you first get there, you're like, you have to be processed in. But once you get through that process, which lasted 2 or 3 weeks, and you get your permanent housing assignment, they would wake you up in the morning for chow, for breakfast, around like 6. Then you'd have to walk to go eat and then walk back. And then at around 7:45, they would have work call. And that meant go to work. So everybody had a work assignment. And then you would go to lunch. They'd have a lockdown where you'd have to sit on your bunk and they'd count you. And then they'd have the second work call. And then at night they had yard call. So during the summer, we might be outside till, you're free to roam the compound till 8 or 9 o'clock whenever the sun started going down. You never got to really be outside when it was dark unless you had 2 or 3 officers surrounding you. But it was its own little world, and I would spend the next 3 years there. And, I was scared going in, but I just remember being struck by this is weird. Like, there was like, on that compound, there were like palm trees and gardens, and, it felt like, okay, I know I'm in prison, but it didn't feel like what you would think prison would feel like.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound that bad, actually.
Well, not all camps in Florida are like that. The youthful offender camps, they're a little more, their security's a little bit lower. It's not maximum security, it's like medium security, but their goal in a youthful offender camp is rehabilitation. So the purpose of being sentenced as a youthful offender is that, hey, we can take this kid and get him back, get his life back on track, and maybe he won't have to go to some of those other rough prisons. Because there are some rough prisons in Florida. Florida State Prison is rough. First stories about that. But this one was a little different. I remember being struck by, I don't know if it's because I was locked up for a year and I didn't watch a lot of TV, but everybody had sideburns all of a sudden. Like, we never had, that just stood out to me. Like, I don't ever remember having sideburns, but like, all the other inmates had like these long sideburns on the side of their head, and just thinking, like, did y'all go back to like Elvis days while I've been gone last year?
What year was that again?
1994.
Okay.
I don't know. I never did get into the sideburn thing, but I just remember being struck by that. And then this camp was a little bit different because it was a youthful offender camp. There would be nobody there over 24, so it was 18 to 24. people with like lighter sentences. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
One of the guys I knew there had a 20-year sentence, and I think that was the person that I knew that had the most time out of everybody I knew. Coming in, it was just weird. You're like trying to adjust to a new normal. You know, it never gets normal, but it kind of does. But it's a little bit similar to how they did at Lake Butler. Like they pulled us in. We were a group of about 25, 30 guys. And they, you know, gave us the speech, you know, you belong to us and whatever we say you do. Or we got, you know, they have a jail within a prison that they would lock you up and throw away the key pretty much and take everything from you. We can get into that later, but, you know, I think 2 times I went to lock up. Once was for getting in a fight. Once was for wanting to go back to sleep during work call and hiding from my dorm officer. But I learned my lesson real quick because that's hard time.
Okay, so let's talk about you processed through, and then you mentioned something about sleeping like in the middle with a lot of people first before you got your room.
There were dorms where you had your own room, so every dorm had 4 pods, and every pod had 5. When you walked into a pod, like there was a day room immediately there that you stepped into with like
what's a day room?
It's a TV, a table.
Like a common area?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there were like no couches or anything like that. It was just metal tables and chairs, you know, so you watch TV or, you know, where they would bring your laundry or they needed to talk to you. They'd make everybody come to the day room. But it was kind of like a split level pods. So upstairs were 5 rooms with 2 men to each room. And then there was actually a bathroom with 2 regular toilets, a sink, and just a regular stand-up shower that actually had a curtain on it, which I was very thankful to see the shower curtain.
So you could go to the bathroom without people watching you here?
Well, we had rules there. They could watch you, but the rule was if somebody was sitting on the toilet, you would cut the lights off so that people would know you're using the bathroom. And then it was just a common, you know, you just give people that respect.
So there was no door to where the toilet was?
No door. But again, like if the lights are off in the bathroom, you know somebody's using the bathroom, you just need to wait.
Okay.
And then there was a sink in that bathroom, but every one of the rooms had its own sink and mirror. So you kind of brushed your teeth, did all your shaving and all that stuff in your room. But in your pod, you're not like overwhelmed with like so many people. There's only a total of 20 people in your pod. So it's easier to navigate, you know, less amount of people. But it would take me 2 or 3 weeks to get to that. My initial, when you come in, it was called L dorm, and it's where everybody goes when they first get there. And then there was another open bay dorm called M dorm. It's where you went if you were a disciplinary problem. L dorm was kind of like what you would see in the military. It was bunk beds just stacked up next to each other. People pushed in there, and you had a little box on the bed that you kept your stuff in, and you could get a lock off the store. It was nasty, like it smelled bad. It was not it was similar to county jail, but not. The bathrooms were the same. It was those little silver toilets, and the showers were crappy. And I think that they did that on purpose with the L dorm and M dorm because nobody wanted to live there. So you would do whatever you need to do not to have to live in one of those dorms. Like the first day, like they taught us how to march, and everywhere we went, we had to march, you know, like, and our marches had to be in sync, like, frah, 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 frah. And this was, I mean, we did a lot of marching. It was very humbling. And
where were you marching to?
Wherever you had to go. They moved you. When you were in L dorm, you were like in orientation, I believe they called it. Wherever you went, you marched, and you went as a group. So you didn't really go anywhere by yourself. You went as a group. Probably the most disappointing thing to me, I had been so hungry in the county jail because they didn't feed you very well. And then I'd been at Lake Butler for a couple of weeks, and they fed you so good there. It was like going from, you know, like trying to eat at Mel's Diner to eating at Granny's house. You know, they fed you so good. The food was so good there. But then when I got to BCI and we went through our first chow hall, that was not the case there. They didn't feed you very good there. And, you know, sometimes when
you say they didn't feed you good, does that mean the food wasn't good or they didn't feed you enough.
The food wasn't good. They didn't feed you enough, and the experience of prison eating. Sometimes you might say to me, like, oh, you eat too fast. Several people have told me that, like, why do you eat so fast? It was like, I had to learn how to eat fast because there was like 5 rows of tables, and you didn't just walk in like you're at a restaurant and sit where you wanted. You got in line, and whoever you're next to is whoever you sat with. Mm-hmm. So it was like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You sit down, and so they would fill up like row 1, and this is just a constant stream, kind of like the shower deal I told you we did at Lake Butler where they did it so fast. So row 1 would fill. Say I'm in row 1. I start eating. They fill row 2. They fill row 3. They fill row 4. They fill row 5. Row 1, get up. Done, get up. If you're not done, get up. Just get up.
So there's only 5 rows.
Mm-hmm. So you basically had like 5 or 6 minutes to eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then the one time they would give us time to eat was on Thanksgiving, which was... I remember that first Thanksgiving being like, wow, we actually got time to sit and eat. But the food was not good. It was gross, actually. It was pretty nasty. And I just remember being like, oh, I'm gonna be hungry again. And just that feeling, and you're helpless, you can't do anything about it.
So did you lose weight while you were there?
At BCI?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think while I was at BCI, I weighed the less that I ever weighed.
Least you've ever...
The least that I ever weighed. I mean, you can look in some of my prison pictures. I look pretty gaunt. But that was because, like, later on, they were little kids that worked in the chow hall that would do stuff to food because they thought it was funny. And, like, stuff like pissing in the Kool-Aid or the tea, or, somebody found a roach in their dressing one time. And I think that was my first year, but when I saw the roach and I heard about the pissing in the Kool-Aid, I was like, you people are not to be trusted. Like, I'm not eating here. So I survived for almost a year off of soups and cans of tuna and peanut butter sandwiches. I just didn't go to the chow hall. I wouldn't eat it.
So you didn't have to go eat if you didn't want to?
No. Well, that's the other thing here that was so neat. Like that first... I think it was the second day they took us. They said, we're going to have commissary call. And I was like, what's that? And, they said, if you have money on your books, you pay for it with your prison ID. And so you walked up to this little window in this little, almost looked like one of those little, like ice cream huts that you see on the beach where you just, walk up and say, I want a dreamsicle and a whatever. You just walked up there and you'd tell them what you wanted. And you could see the stuff. You could actually look at it. And, I mean, they had ice cream and cigarettes and coffee. And those
it was like popping by a gas station or something if you're...
Yeah, it was. That was a definite, like, okay, this part is good. Like, this is good because, you get so hungry. And then...
So you had money because your family had sent you money?
Yeah.
You money.
Yeah. And then, you could also buy, like, hygiene, like, deodorant that worked and shampoo and...
was there a markup on the prices? I'm just curious. Or was it cheaper than normal?
No, it was about the same, but it wasn't like fine quality things. Like that, there was like cans of tuna, cans of sardines. I never ate a sardine, by the way. I never did get to that. A lot of guys did because of the protein. Mostly peanut butter. They sold bread, jelly.
Oh, wow.
So the main course in Florida prison was called the main course. The main thing that you did to celebrate was we called it a tuna tang party.
You've made me tuna tang. I do not like tuna, especially from a can. I like a tuna fillet.
But you ate the tuna tang.
Think what you want, but yeah, I did eat it, and it was. I mean, for it being a prison food, it was pretty good.
I had an.
But I don't even. I mean, I shouldn't say it was pretty good.
I had an idea when I was in prison, like this is so good, and I've learned so many different ways to make it. Because I learned to make it without the tuna and do like roast beef or ham.
Okay, but pause. Hold on. How do you make tuna tang? Let's just tell people what it is.
Okay, so you do it with a group of people because you can't eat it all by yourself, and it costs too much to make it. So you would get all these things off the store. You would start with the Maruchan, the soups, like ramen noodle soups.
Okay, yes. So
you fill those up, let the noodles cook, and then you would get a box and you would put a clean trash. This sounds gross, but I mean, you put it. This was we had to do what we had to do. You put a clean trash bag in the box, and you would get, if you had 5 people that were doing it together, you'd need 5 soups. So you would let the soups cook, and then you would pour the water off, and so you just kept the noodles and the little, the 3 carrots and the 2 sweet peas that were in there with the seasoning.
The size of my pinky nail, yes.
Yeah, and then you dump that in there, and then you would put into that like 2 or 3 cans of tuna, mayonnaise, mustard, salt and pepper that you would swipe from the chow hall, Cheese Whiz that they sold on the store. Oh, no, it was so good.
Did you put Cheese Whiz in the one you made me?
No, I use cheese. I make my own cheese sauce now, but the kicker to that was you would take Cool Ranch Doritos or Doritos, and you would just pulverize them, and you would dump them in that, and then you would just stir it up, and then you would put it on a sandwich, and you would eat it, and it is still, as I'm talking about this, I want a tuna tang sandwich right now.
It has the opposite effect on me. I'm like, ugh. So you literally put a clean trash bag, like lined a box.
Yeah, that's how you made it.
To be able to mix it together.
Everybody that was a prison chef kept their own. It was usually when you ordered I think you had to order 8 soups to get the box.
Wait, 8 soups to get what? Oh, the box.
The box that the soups came in.
Yes.
If you ordered 2 soups, they would give you 2 soups. But if you ordered a case, then you would get to keep the box.
Which is what you use to make the tuna tang.
Yeah, so anybody that knew how to tuna tang would keep the box under their bed.
So tuna tang is not only a noun of something you ate, you just use it as a verb.
It was both.
Anybody that knows how to tuna tang.
Tuna tang. I was one of the best tuna tangers at Brevard Correctional Institution.
I have to say, I remember at some point in our restaurant and catering days, we had we talked about a lot of different ideas, but I think we talked about a food truck, and you're like, "Oh, I could sell tuna tang."
Well, no, I had that idea. I had that idea when I was in prison. Like you could put this on a piece of pita bread or something, and people would. And I've never fed it to anybody that didn't like it. I don't always tell people what it is. But actually, when we had Kairos in Gardendale, and they talked me into doing that silly buffet thing, because, I don't like buffets, I made tuna tang one time and put it on the buffet, and they ate it up.
So, who came up with that recipe originally?
Somebody that came before us. I don't know.
Somebody who'd gone before you.
Well, that was one of the things, Jay. The other ones, we called them a 3-way. I don't know where the name came from, but it was called a 3-way. So you take 3 pieces of bread, you put peanut butter on all 3 pieces of bread, and you either smash an oatmeal pie or a Swiss roll in between, put jelly on it, smash it down. And that is still, to this day, that's one of my favorite desserts. I haven't done it in a long time because it's so unhealthy. But
that also sounds terrible.
No,
so it's
good.
Basically like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with an oatmeal cream pie in the middle?
Mm-hmm. Stacked 3 ways, like a club. Like 1, 2, 3 pieces of bread. Not 2 pieces. Kind of like a Big Mac, Wait, does a Big Mac have 3 pieces of bread?
I think so.
Anyways, it was like a club sandwich, like 3 pieces of bread. If you wanted the deluxe version, you would put an oatmeal pie on the bottom, peanut butter and jelly, next piece of bread, peanut butter and jelly, 2 Swiss rolls, peanut butter and jelly, and then smash it down, and it was a delectable delight.
That really sounds like it. Honestly, my stomach turns.
No.
When you describe it.
Maybe, but I'll make a believer out of you sometime.
I don't think so. I'm good. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I think we're digressing on this one, but
no, I think this is so interesting with the food, what you came up with and what also became a treat. We
always did it on Christmas. We did it but it got better for me because my second year at BCI, I started working in the kitchen, and then that changed the whole game. Because then we didn't have to just do tuna. I could smuggle in roast beef or ham, and I did so many versions of tuna tang, but it was how I survived in the beginning, and it was never lost on me that there were a lot of people there. I would say 70% of the people that are in prison don't get money from home. So people come up with hustles where they gamble or they wash people's clothes or, write letters. There were guys that wanted other guys to write letters for them, which I always thought was stupid.
Was it because they couldn't read or write, or?
I probably could have been a letter writer. I just never had to have a hustle because my family took care of me. I think it was they couldn't write Like, the thing in there was, you write these girls or your old girlfriend, and you want to keep yourself in her heart or whatever. But I had already gave up on that by that time. I was like, I'm not going to try to be dating nobody from a prison cell. That ain't going to work out.
Right. So they would get people to write letters.
Mm-hmm. And
like romantic letters?
Yeah.
Yes.
And make cards. Like guys that knew how to draw and write and stuff like that. My aunt, Glennis, when Kinsey was born, she sent me a picture of her, which, it's hard to see your family having babies when you're in prison, but there was a guy in the cell next to me. I gave him 2 packs of cigarettes, and he turned that picture into like a chalk drawing.
Oh, neat.
And it looked just like her. It was
Do you still
cool.
have that? Or did you send it to...
I sent it to Glennis.
Oh, okay.
She has it. And I learned how to do some art while I was in there. I mean, I sent my grandmother a Mother's Day card one time that she framed that I have in my closet, because she went to heaven. In Twin Trip. I still have that in there that I made, my prison art.
Yeah.
And then there was like hobby craft and people that made all kind of stuff. There was always, everybody had a hustle. Some of it was, there were a lot of predators. I didn't see those right away. We'll talk about that, I guess, sometime. But there were a lot of...
So there were predators, even though you said the oldest person in this particular camp was 24?
Yeah. I mean, but the game was survival. Like, you had to survive.
So the hustles were to pay for tuna tank?
Tuna tank. Well, honestly, the biggest thing that people... I don't hardly know anybody that didn't drink coffee or smoke cigarettes. So those were the 2 biggest commodities.
And you weren't given any coffee or cigarettes. You had to pay for it.
You had to
somehow.
buy it. Yeah. No, they didn't give that. You had to hustle for it.
Yeah.
And Black and Mild cigars was a big thing. I remember I used to smoke the Black and Milds and be like, these are gross. Like, I don't even like this. Why are we doing this? And it's like, it's just what you do. It's like, it's a thing.
So, I mean, it really does sound like that there was a lot of order. Like, there was a lot of, routine and order. And
there was on the other side, but my first week or so there when I was in L dorm, there was not. There was a lot of chaos because you had like 20 or 30 people in that dorm, and you had 2 officers. They didn't handle that too well. You spent most of your day like going to processing, going to see your classification officer, you had to like process through all the things you were there for. I had been sentenced by the judge to a mandatory drug program, and there was one in that prison. So they told me, you'll be going to the drug program. And I said, I don't do drugs. I'm good. You can give me a urine test. I don't want to do all that. And she said, you were ordered by the judge, so you're going to the drug program, and you've got to graduate. So you need to figure that out for yourself. And I was glad I did that. But
so the drug program was within the camp?
Yes. It was part of, 2 of the dorms were dedicated to the drug program there.
Okay, but going back to the L dorm and the chaos, what was...
It was, I never really, seen anything like that, because these were mostly young kids, and they were crazy. Like, they were just like, I thought some of the things I saw as a kid was evil. Like, they had this thing where people would be asleep at night, and they would piss in a bag and go dump it on their head.
Ugh.
And then
why would you do that?
To this day, I don't know. I don't know the thing behind that. And then the second or third night I was there, I don't know how they found an ant bed, but somebody found an ant bed and put it in a Ziploc bag and waited till sleep time. And they opened it up and threw it on somebody's bed. And so
that is horrible.
This kid got ants all over him, and he was screaming and crying. And just honestly, that first... I think it was 2 weeks I was there, I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep, because, you're in an open bay dorm, anything can happen, and these people are crazy. I never really seen anything like that. And then my advice, that I was given was, you got to fight somebody when you first get there. You have to, especially you. They used to tell me, especially you, James, you have to get in a fight when you first get there because you don't have any homeboys. So I was all on my own. I didn't.
What was the homeboy again?
Homeboys, if I was from.
Oh, the homeboy. You're
if I was
from the same area.
Bay County or
right.
Jacksonville, those are home. I didn't have any homeboys because I was from Alabama, and I don't think the whole time I was there I never met anybody from Alabama. Not that it would matter. I just they had schooled me well on that, but I also desperately wanted to see my mama. and I knew that once I got there, I could get a visit. So I was just like, all right, whatever you got to do to make it to the visit, get to that, and then handle your business. And I think it was like day 6, I got a visit. It was on a Sunday, and the visits there compared to the visits in county jail were just like glorious.
Why? What were the visits?
Well, I mean, going on a visit was hard because you had to endure so much to get in there, and then
what did you have to endure to get in there?
They like strip you butt naked and look in all your holes.
Oh, they do that just to go visit?
Every time, before you go in and after you come out.
Oh, wow.
It was an ordeal, but it's just like being able to see my mom and being able to touch her and hug her and just cry and all things, that first one. And then by that time, I was trying to make her feel better, and so I was just kind of hyping up all the good things about it. And those prison visits are so much different because you have contact. You can, you sit at a table. You can talk to other inmates and their visitors. There's a little store there. They like make like pizzas and cheeseburgers, and they can buy you stuff, and
oh wow,
all this stuff. And then
it's like an outing.
It is, and
within the complex.
And then there's the infamous picture taking. I think I talked in one of them about your mom wanting to see my prison pictures after we were engaged.
Yes. Okay, hold on though, because when Mom was looking at these prison pictures, I don't know if it was me or her, but it was this Polaroid. And it was a beach and like palm tree backdrop. And like you would if you're on a cruise or something when they take pictures and you can get these pictures made. But I did notice you had your white. Was it white or blue?
The ones in Alabama were white. The ones in Florida were blue.
Were blue. Okay.
Yeah.
But I noticed you had on what looked like to me a prison outfit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Oh, did you get to go somewhere?"
I think you said, "Did y'all have a beach?" No.
But they literally make a backdrop for taking pictures like you're somewhere other than prison. I don't know why that just strikes me as so
I think
funny.
They do that in every prison, I believe. I mean,
it's just let's just pretend we're not in prison and you're at the beach for this picture and this picture only.
Well, now you're old. I mean, I'm old. I'm older than you. Okay. So, do you ever remember like going to a picture place when you were a kid?
Well, Olin Mills.
Yeah.
Back when I was younger.
So they have backdrops. I mean, that's not that abnormal.
Right, but this is not a family going to the Olin Mills studio. They're going to prison.
Well, you're getting your prison pictures taken. I mean, I don't know why we wanted pictures. I remember, but you did. You wanted anything to be able to go back to your dorm and say, "This is my mom, this is my Aunt Patsy, and this is my cousin."
And if you're in there for years, literally, I mean, it's the only way to document like time passing, I guess.
Well, I have quite a stack of prison pictures. I mean, I have an impressive.
We need to show that at some point. The Palm Beach backdrop picture.
Yeah,
for your. Okay, so you're visiting your mom, and that was a big deal because they checked all your holes.
It was the best.
Hug and cry and all things.
And it wasn't like in the county jail you had like an hour max. Sometimes in Jefferson County they would give me 2 hours because they had to travel so far. Visit in prison was if your people want to stay with you for 8 hours, they can stay with you for 8 hours.
Wow.
So whatever the visiting time was, it started at like 9, ended at like 3 or 4. So it was an all day. It was good.
So were you there all day that first time?
Oh, yeah. Now, my mom, she was a little bit of an enabler. I can see that now, but I mean...
Well, I'm a little bit of an enabler. I can see that. And so is my mom. I mean...
Well, I'm not so much an enabler with our boys, but I think I'm an enabler with Lula Mae. She's got me wrapped.
Well, when I say enabler, I mean, I'm even thinking of the smallest things like picking up behind her, or she left something or didn't put something away, and I'll pick it up and put it up so she doesn't lose it and can find it next time, instead of making her do it to get her better at not just leaving things places. I mean, that's the enabling I'm talking about.
Well, my mom was just... She would say this over and over, and it would make me feel guilty. She would say, "As long as I know you're okay, then I can be okay." And visits were great in prison, but it was so hard when they left. I remember Later on, I would try to limit the visits because I felt so guilty about them having to drive for 10 hours, get a hotel room, spend the night, come see me, drive back 10 hours. It just seemed like a lot. So, I mean, in the beginning, they came quite a bit. My granny came quite a bit. You know, my aunt, Patsy, she was always my number one visitor.
When you say quite a bit, do you mean like once a month or?
They could come every week if they wanted to.
But how often did yours come?
About once a month. Later on, it turned into like every 2 or 3 months. Mm-hmm. And then it got to a place where I actually told my granny, because she was so old and she'd have to get somebody else to travel with her. It's like, Granny, I love you. I want to talk to you on the phone, but it hurts my heart for you to have to do all this. And I want to see you. It wasn't because I didn't want to see her. I wanted to see her. But it just seemed, I guess, and then my Aunt Sue and my Uncle Bernie, they would come a lot. So I got a lot of visits, but that first one was really just like...
You needed to see someone familiar.
I did. I needed to touch someone. That was one of the things that, you know, I'm not even that much of a physical touch person, but when you realize, like, I've been like a year and a half without a hug.
That's crazy.
That's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have had a hug, but I don't want that kind of hug. But
I guess we've experienced some of that with this like pandemic that we've been in. But
it's similar to that.
But that's a year and a half is even longer than that. Not to.
It starts.
So you didn't hug anyone or touch anyone besides them checking you for things for a year and a half. Well, because you had visits from them.
I did, but originally in Jefferson County, they let us have contact visits. But after that, we had to talk through that little hole with the stinky box, the stinky box that you had to speak through. And then in Panama City, it wasn't quite as primitive as that, but it was like you would go into this like booth, and it was like solid glass. And it was life size, so I mean, you could see everything, but you talk through a phone. And I mean, you could put your hand up and touch. You know how sometimes I'm out in the yard and Royal, our son, will put his face up against the glass and ask me to kiss him? It was similar to that.
But it's still not human contact. I mean, you really are actually kissing glass, but and touching glass.
Yeah, so that was good. And that was on a Sunday. I knew that the next day that I would have to handle my business as far as people messing with me.
Oh, you mean get in a fight?
Yeah. So the next day we were in class. It was just so good to see my mom.
Hold on. So you're talking about the next day after your visit with your mom. So you got to spend a whole day with your mom.
All right. So the reason why I needed to wait for the visit was because there's a gamble when you get in a fight in prison. The gamble is if you get a disciplinary, you go straight to lockup. And if you're in lockup, you can't get a visit. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the whole thing for me was, if I can just get through whatever it takes for me to get a visit, then whatever needs to happen after that, we can do whatever. But I need to see my mama. I need to get through, because that would have broke her heart, like for her to try to come see me and that she couldn't.
Right.
And I didn't tell her anything about, I got to go get in a fight, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. And I didn't want her to know. I didn't want her to know about that. So I waited till my first visit, which was, I think, 6 days in.
And when you talk about this, it's not like, I mean, you just knew this and made this up in your mind because of the advice you've been given.
Well, no, that was common knowledge. If you get in a fight and you get a disciplinary, you go to lockup, even if you're not guilty. And you stay in lockup, a couple of days before they give you, because they had like these little courts they did with the officers.
Right, but I'm just talking about your knowing and deciding to get in a
knowing
fight.
that I had to get in a fight?
Yeah, so people wouldn't mess with you.
Oh, no. That was drilled into me. Like, the old-timers in the county jail were like, you will not survive if you let one person try you and you don't do something about it. I'm telling you, you will not survive prison. So I knew what I had to do, and I was scared. But that Monday, which was the day after my visit, I think we'd had a particularly hard night that night, too, because they were like wilding out, acting like animals and crazy people. There was like they're throwing the piss on people, throwing the ants on people. I mean, it was very like juvenile, like stupid, but just evil stuff. And the next day, we were in a little class thing where they would come in and do these little classes in the dorm there, and then they would leave. And I don't even remember what he was messing with me about, but he was like picking at me, saying something to me, and I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, why does it have to be the biggest one in here to be the one messing with me? I mean, because I pretty much fended it off up until then, but I knew what I had to do. So I called him out, and I told him, you ain't going to talk to me like that. And
wait, what did he say to you?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It was the advice that I was given, the first one that messes with you, you have to do something about it.
Okay.
I so wished it would have been someone smaller. But this guy, this was a big guy. I mean, this was a big guy. He was like broad chest and like, I don't know. He was at least 6 foot tall. We went in the bathroom. And like looking back on it now, I think it was kind of humorous to him. He didn't think we were going to get in a fight. Mm-hmm. But I was telling him he wasn't going to talk to me like that. He wasn't going to disrespect me. And, he was, kind of like, well, what are you going to do about it? So we went in the bathroom and we like squared off and like
squared off. Does that mean you put up your fist
to get in a fight? Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't like, and just for the record, I never got in a fight like this again. Like my first fight in the county jail where I rushed the guy and pulled on his balls.
Oh yeah.
That worked for me. This one like squaring off, but I was trying to be a man, do whatever I needed to do. Like I squared off with him and I actually hit him first. And it was like, I hit him and it was just like a little thud, kind of like nothing. It probably hurt me more than it hurt him.
Right.
And he just reached his big fist and arm out and just came around and hit me in my eye. And it was like what you would see on the cartoons, like on Roadrunner when they would fall off the... No, I'm serious. I saw stars and I fell down. Actually... he almost knocked me out, but I fell on my shoulder, and I ripped something in my shoulder that took like 2 years for that shoulder to heal up. And I didn't, you didn't want to go tell them you had those kind of problems in prison because they would send you off to like this medical thing where they would do surgery on you, but it wasn't like real doctors. It was like doctors in training, and most of them were like Vietnamese or something. I don't know. It was
sounds terrible.
It was a nightmare, like thinking about getting sick in prison.
But hold on. So he punched you.
Let's come back to the medical stuff, and I'll tell you something.
Okay, but I want to hear you were seeing stars.
I saw stars. Like I saw stars dancing on the water.
So you saw stars, and then what? Did you get up and hit back?
I fell on my shoulder, and I fell hard, like. He hit me hard, but I hit him first.
Okay, so did you get up? This is what I want to know. I did.
He helped me up. He patted me, and he said...
So he hit you, and then he helped you?
He helped me. No. Well, you don't understand. We couldn't get caught fighting, or we'd both go to lockup.
Oh, okay.
So we both knew that.
This is a very cordial fight after the initial blows.
It hurt. It hurt.
I don't know why.
So he helped me up, and then some other guys were there, and they were like, "Oh, there's police coming!" All that. So he helped me up, and then he like patted me on my shoulder, and he said, "You got heart, white boy. Ain't nobody gonna mess with you." And it was different after that.
Oh,
but the problem.
Wait, did he say you have heart?
You got heart, white boy.
Okay.
And I did. I didn't want to fight, but I'm like, I'm not not. Whatever, especially if I just need to get in one fight, let's just get in the fight and be done with it.
I love how you say you hit him and it was just like a
it was
thud.
Like, it was like I think it hurt me more than it hurt him, and then he just kind of reached out. He hit me hard. He hit me hard. Think how hard you'd have to hit somebody to knock them down.
Yeah.
And he hit me. But then the problem with that was my eye. I had a black eye. I think that's the only black eye I've ever had. But it was like swollen up, big, with like the red and the blue and the black. And then it was, the game after that was to keep that hidden from the officers.
Were you able to do that?
Well, it was different in like a BCI, a permanent camp. You got a dorm that's got 20, 40, 60, 80 men in it. You have one dorm officer. So you can figure out a way to navigate through that. And so my strategy with that was I had a friend of mine that had the guy with the red shoes. I'm not going to say his name. I would have him stand in front of me, and I would always make sure that if I came upon an officer that my head was turned the other way. And I made it almost until my eye was healed up before I got attention called to it, maybe like a week later. And I told him that I got elbowed playing basketball. And he was like, no, you didn't. And I was like, yes, I did. And then my friend told him, yeah, it was me. I elbowed him. It was an accident. It sure did hurt. But we got through that.
So was it true then at the end, that advice you got in the county jail, get in one fight the first time someone tries to mouth off, and you did your little...
It was. I wish I had a video of that.
Almost knockout, and then he helped you up. He's basically like, bless his heart.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he didn't say bless his heart, but
well,
in his language,
idea.
he would have. Yeah.
So, but then no one else messed with you after that?
Different day after that. That night, nobody. It was like, just don't mess with him. And this is what I learned in prison. It was not, could you fight? It was, would you fight? And I would. So
at least you would try.
And I mean, there I think I got into a couple more fights later on. Random little stuff. I remember, well, we can talk about that a little later. We get stuck on that.
I don't think I've ever heard that story though.
But that's the only time I've ever been like hit like that. And then I didn't get knocked out, but I was very close to it. Like if I'd have had to like hit him again and him hit me again, I probably would have got knocked out. I would have been like, what is that? The tap out? Yeah. Tap me out. The winner by knockout. It wouldn't have been me. So
that's great.
Yeah, so fighting was not my thing, but you know, I had to do what I had to do. I wanted to survive.
So was there anything else that just that is a standout for you on the initial kind of introduction to your first permanent camp?
It was just, this is my life now, and I got to figure this out. You know, we had headphones in there. You could get headphones and do music, but you could also get like a boombox. Most people had a boom. I never wanted a boombox because I was like, I don't want everybody to know I'm listening to. We'd be out on the yard, and there was a Mariah Carey song. It was actually a song, ironically, that you were singing at the time at your grandparents' 50th wedding anniversary. It was a Mariah Carey song. It said, like, if you feel you lost your... I can't remember how it goes.
There's a hero.
But a hero lies in you, so just keep doing things. And that song just brought me so much, like, hope. Like, okay, I can just... If I can just figure this out, like, I know this is awful, and if I can just, you know, there's a hero lying in me. Somewhere we can just get through. It was
lying in you when you were lying on the floor in that bathroom after almost getting punched out.
It was, but
I do think, like he said, and we can end with this. He said, "What did he say? You have heart, white boy."
He said, "White boy, you got heart.
White boy, you got
heart."
I think you do have heart, and you do have just a spirit of just like, I'm gonna get after this and do whatever I need to do to. In that case, it was to survive. But I've seen that in you. Just, I mean, honestly, in our marriage, in our business, or in like work situations, or with our kids, like you definitely have a heart to like drive and move the ball forward and do whatever it takes, whatever you need to do. I love that about you.
Thank you. That's sweet. I guess the next one we'll talk about. You know, I was sentenced by the judge as part of my prison sentence to go through a drug program. Mm-hmm. They told me that I would be going through theirs at BCI, and it was a 9-month in-house, like 9-month drug program. We'll get into that in the next episode, and I can tell you some of the things I learned about that. Most of it was a joke. I learned during that time that we were the inmates and we were criminals, but there were a lot of criminals that worked there as well, especially the counselors and stuff running the drug program. It was a trip. But I remember getting my room assignment, and they sent me to D dorm, Delta dorm, and they gave me a room assignment. And just walking in that dorm, it did not look like prison. It looked like, you know, I'm away at school somewhere. I mean, like, the floors were waxed, and, you know, it was like this tile.
D dorm, D stands for drug?
No, and that was just, no. There was A dorm, B dorm, C dorm.
Oh, okay.
D dorm and E dorm were the drug dorms.
Okay.
And just going in there, they gave me a key to my little room, and just like, okay, this is the next thing. But I can remember that first time, like, walking in there thinking, I'm buried in this place. Like, I am inside 2 fences, inside this compound. I'm buried, and nobody knows where I am. Like, my mama don't know where I am. My granny don't know where I am. Nobody that I love could find me or touch me. Like, anything could happen to me. And I just felt, like, lost and, like, I'm dead. I'm going to try to make the best of this and navigate through it, but
it's over.
I'm out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that was, I guess the emotional part of it was just that sense of nobody knows where I am. Nobody can check on me. Nobody can, I belong to the Florida Department of Corrections. And that was a sobering thought. And you'd think that I would just wake up the next day and be like, oh, I'm going to change my life. That was not my story. It would take me a little bit longer to want to do anything different. But that was the end of that portion of prison life, getting acclimated, getting in. And there was a lot of life that happened after that.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening.
So stay tuned for next time. I'll tell you about the drug dorm in the Florida Department of Corrections, or some of them called it the Florida Department of Connections. Oh. See you soon.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to the Straight Outta Prison podcast. For more, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Look up Straight Outta Prison podcast.
Yes, we have pictures and people of things that we talk about during each episode. I have really loved being able to connect people and their faces and names and some other things that we've talked about on this platform. So, Straight Outta Prison podcast, Facebook and Instagram. And if you'd like to support our show, check out our website, teenjones.co.com/podcast. Thanks, guys.
See you soon.